If you have been in recovery for any length of time or are fighting to get there, you have probably caught yourself trapped in the same mental loops or feeling mentally scattered even after periods of sobriety. By the end of this episode, you will discover how lack of visual clarity keeps those old patterns alive and why simply getting your thoughts out of your head and onto a map can change everything. You will learn how redefining your identity through mind mapping builds the real foundation for lasting freedom and authentic confidence. And before we finish, I will give you one simple mind mapping step that you can take and use today to create immediate clarity. I chose John Diggs for this conversation because he went from NFL and business success to losing everything, facing a rock bottom, and then rebuilt his life using mind mapping and the I am system. Please welcome John Diggs.
Thank you for having me. It's excited to be here.
I'm
Appreciate
so
it,
excited.
Massimo. Sure. This
Yes.
is cool. This is cool. I love it. Thank you.
You're welcome. John, what are some of the biggest and most surprising things your journey from success to rock bottom and back taught you about how the mind creates its own barriers through lack of clarity and overthinking, and why so many people struggle to break free even when they know what they should do?
Ooh, good question. What I've learned is that when life comes at us, you know, uh, vicissitudes, ups and downs, unexpected events that happens in our lives, that it can really make us thoughts, feelings, and emotions just swirl around in our minds, uncontrollably, unorganized, just bouncing through our thoughts. And it really puts us in a difficult position because it's hard for us to gain the clarity or to really understand what is true and what is not true. I'm looking at this event and experience from maybe some past beliefs, maybe some past perspectives, maybe some limiting beliefs, or maybe just, I don't know what's really going on in my mind. So it creates a lot of this angst in your mind and confusion and overwhelm and stress and overload. And what I've just learned is that being able to get that out of your thoughts, of your mind, where you can really just get it out to really see what you're thinking, gives you that perspective or gives you room to see things in other possible ways that you're unable to see it when it's just trapped in your mind. So when I did this, when I was again rock bottom, everything was coming at me. I didn't know what to do. And when mind mapping came into my life and I started doing this, I started realizing that, wait a minute, what I thought things meant wasn't necessarily true, or there's other ways I can possibly see certain things that will enable me to release some of the negativity that was surrounding that, to put me in a better mindset to transform some of those limiting or unwanted experiences that was before me.
But of course, it opens up another great number of questions. And chief among those is, how do you begin doing this unpacking of your mind? I mean, it sounds like a lot. I mean, there's a lot trapped in everyone's head. How do I get it out so I can actually look at it?
Yeah, and it is a very simple exercise that I teach, and it's called the brain dump exercise, where a person could just grab a blank piece of paper and a pen, something to write with, something to write on, and any thought that comes to your mind, put it on the paper. Just put it on the paper. Just put it on the paper. Just put it on the paper. It comes to your mind. Don't overanalyze. Don't overthink. Don't judge it. Don't be too critical about it. Just get everything out of your mind. You can do this in a general sense, or you can do this about a specific subject that you're focused on. Had a client yesterday having trouble with their boss. So we just brain dump around all of your thoughts and feelings around your boss. Let's just get it all out of your mind first. And that right there in itself creates some relief. Just by brain dumping it out of your mind, now it's no longer like a first person attachment kind of deal. Now you're looking at it as a third person kind of deal. Now you got at least, and for coaches in your audience or mentors or guides, it's best to do this first with your clients, because now you are at least seeing what's going on in here to properly help them with a strategy, versus trying to go immediately to strategy and you haven't really seen what's really bouncing around in their mind. So what I found is just doing a brain dump exercise. Anytime a person feels stressed, overwhelmed, overloaded, pause 5 minutes, grab a napkin, grab a toilet paper square. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just spend again just a few minutes. All right, there's a lot going on. Let me just get it out of my mind first. That is like the first step that I would take. Then naturally, once you get that, now you can strategize, maybe reframe some of those things that you put in. More than likely, when people are brain dumping and after they feel complete, like they brain dump enough, now they'll look at it and start to do this naturally. Wait a minute, I wasn't really just that upset about that. I was just maybe a little down about that. That's not really what it meant when it was in my head. Now that I'm looking at it, it wasn't really that serious. So people start to kind of work their personal coaching by way of just being able to see it, just period.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
They
that's the
they
best
can look
way.
at themselves from an objective point of view rather than subjectively because they
Exactly.
can look at it as if this is another person. I just laid this out on a piece of paper and I'm no longer necessarily looking at me. How would I solve this problem if it were someone else? And just that
Right.
amount of separation to have it on the page is enough for them is what I heard you say.
Exactly. It just that separation where it's not just about me anymore. It's these are thoughts,
Yeah.
not necessarily me. These are just so let me try to reframe them. So yeah, that's what I would say as far as
Yeah.
the first step for anybody to introduce themselves to the concept of visual thinking, mind mapping, mappineering
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
it to just start brain dumping to see what's really going on in your brain.
That's pretty powerful stuff. But you went through some incredible challenges, as I
Ooh.
recall, sometime during the housing crisis in '08. And how did that experience shape what you now understand about rebuilding and the role of identity in lasting change? And why did getting your thoughts out of your head help that?
Yeah, great question. Again, back in the early 2000s, I owned one of the largest mortgage brokerages in Southern California. Was living this incredible millionaire like lifestyle. I made more money as a businessman than I ever did as a professional football player. And the life was great. Had everything I wanted. But then the mortgage meltdown 2007, 2008 just ripped all that away from me. So everything I identified with, everything I worked hard, sacrificed for, built, gone. I mean, wife, kids, house, cars, everything. I was forced to move back to my mother's house. Just to quickly on that story, I did a TEDx talk on this, on the details of it, but just the high level, I was forced to move back to my mom's house and sleep on the couch. I actually bought her, kind of deal, which was a very humbling experience. But the identity that I once had was no longer. I was really rock bottom, threshold, bottom of the barrel, worst part of my life and most definitely. But I took this box with me and this big ass box is what I call it because it was literally a big like moving box that I had all these videotapes and CDs and books that positive stuff I accumulated over the years. I knew I had to go back into there to try to reset myself. And there was that Mind Map book by Tony Buzan that was in there. I don't remember buying it, but it was there. It resonated with me. I read it and I started mind mapping all of the contents of that box. Spent like 3 months of just mind mapping, Think and Grow Rich, Unlimited Power, Power of Now. I mean, all of the
Mhm.
big self
Yeah.
help books. And I walked away with a big distinction that mind mapping enabled me to see. I started seeing the connections of all of these thought leaders of what they was ultimately talking about. And what I took away from that was that all of them are essentially saying that life is meant to be loved. Life is meant to be loved. They all had their own strategy and systems of thought and thinking and processes on how to achieve that, but they're always saying the same thing. You do this, you'll love your life. Even the prophets, Jesus said, you do this, you love your life. So I walked away with that, like, wait a minute, despite what happened just now in my life, I'm here to love this experience of life. So that was like a big distinction that happened. And I don't know if I would have made those connections if it wasn't for mind mapping, because I started having these poster boards all around of all these books. And it was just easy to see the connections of everything. But then the second point that I got from that experience was that in order for me to truly love and live my best life, I first have to get clear on who I am and what I want to do it. That was really a big distinction, where I was like, wow, okay, I'm on this earth to love life. So I need to find what that really means for me. Love and life can mean something different for everybody. But what does it truly mean for me? So I spent 3 months or so, all day, every day, building what is now known as the I am mind map, where I just put I am in the center. And I just started questioning and really grappling with who am I and what do I want with my life. That right there transformed my life. Where 8 months later, after moving into my mom's house, I actually landed a high six-figure gig as a mortgage software developer, and well, that rags to riches was very short, primarily because of what mind mapping and the visual clarity it gave me to reset myself a lot faster, where I wasn't just so down in the dumps and lost and didn't know which way to go forward and was just in this haze, which I find a lot of people that are in when, life throws them curveballs, they get divorced, get fired, whatever that may be, empty nesters. There's this haze that people go through, which is why I constantly stress to people, you have to spend time to develop your own I am mind map, because it'll help you get crystal clear on what you want, which will reveal the true goals that you should be going after. That's going to give you that ultimate fulfillment, where I'm sure Massimo, that there's a lot of people that work very hard for something and they get it and they're like, this wasn't it. You know what I mean? Where I talk to people, like, instead of talk about strategy, let's go to your identity first. Let's clarify what's most important to you around your health, your wealth, your success, your happiness. And in that process and in the coaching systems I created, the goals, the real goals that people want, versus both personally and professionally, reveal themselves. And once it reveals themselves that that's the goal that is in alignment with who they're intending to be, then it's easier for them to take action. It's easier to stay on track. It's easier to move towards that because it's more in alignment with who they're professing and intending to be with their life, versus a lot of people like, I want to lose weight, but they haven't identified themselves yet with a person that's in shape. Let's identify you as someone in shape, then it's going to be easier for you to start doing the things necessary to match that kind of deal.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't move towards something if you don't know why you're moving towards it or be able to visualize yourself in that end state. If you can't see
Exactly.
yourself in the end state, you're never going to get there. You're just meandering around in the dark, not quite knowing how you're going to arrive at your destination, which is really kind of silly. I'm kind of curious though, what was the most surprising thing you found on that first map you drew out?
That first map that I drew out, let me just state this to be clear. That I am mind map that I started back in 2010 that changed my life, it has evolved. It's not a done thing. It's something, I look at it every day, all day now, and it's 16, 17 years later. Because as I evolve, it evolves. Not necessarily the core principles of what I look for as far as excellent spiritual, physical, and mental health, successful relationships, results, and rewards. The key components stay the same, but they evolve. And what it really revealed about myself is what I thought was happiness. Now I know what is happiness. What I thought was fulfillment of big house, big cars,
Mhm.
football player, big businessman, all that stuff that I thought was something that I wanted. Now I had the clarity to have absolute certainty of what would bring me that fulfillment and peace was a huge distinction for me. Again, in the coaching and in the courses that I have, once people identify that, now there's levels to it where we actually start taking action. What are some of the action steps that we can take on a daily to make sure you are touching base on all of that stuff? And one of the most powerful things that I was going to say in the last question is that when you create a visual map, it's a snapshot. In one page, it has all of these key components of your life and what's important to your life, all in one snapshot. I mean, you could just see it all in one. You don't have to thumb through. You can just see it all in one shot. It's easier for you to now do what I call intentional dream, to where before you go to bed, you're dreaming about that map. You're visualizing that map. You're trying to connect to the emotions of that map, of what does it really feel like for you to have excellent health, extraordinary wealth, enormous success, extreme happiness. So you now, when you go in your mind's eye and you're thinking about things in your imagination, it's easier for me to see the map. I can see now where things are. to where as I start to go through my map, I'm getting a more enhanced visualization practice.
I'm picking up that one of the core ideas in the I am mind map system that you've created are these four anchors, which are health, wealth, success, and happiness before you set any goals or make any changes. So, for the listeners who have spent years defined by their addiction or their past mistakes, how does the identity first mapping process help them move beyond simply trying to avoid their old behaviors to actively creating new confident version of themselves?
Yeah, yeah, great question. You know, again, I think a lot of people haven't necessarily taken the time to really give some serious thought about who they are, regardless of their circumstances, regardless of their story, regardless of their past. Very few people have really just went through and said, I am defining myself. I'm not going to let society, my dad, a drug or addiction. No, who am I going to define myself as? And once you approach this process with that mindset, you're declaring who are you really when it comes to your spiritual health? Who do you intend to be? Who would you like to be? Or who would you declare yourself as being when it comes to having an extraordinary wealth and abundance of positive emotions? What are some of the emotions that you truly would like to experience in your life? Is it love? Is it enthusiasm, optimism, joy? What are some of those emotions that you want to know? Well, an abundance of that you want to experience mostly. What are some of the specialized knowledge or skills that you would like to develop? Put those on your map now. Then once we kind of go through this process and they start to declare some of these things, now it's like starting to get that momentum, if you will, like, all right, I'm now defining myself versus in a way that I've never done before. And I'm not doing it from a hopeful standpoint or a praying standpoint or hope someday it happens. I'm doing it from a standpoint of knowledge, knowing that my God, right, as a human, I can define who I am. I can. That's your right. You can change your name if you want to. And nowadays, it seems like people are changing sex. I mean, there's a whole bunch of stuff that are going on. That people can truly wake up one day and be like, I am no longer Calvin Broadus. Call me Snoop Dogg now. I mean, you can change yourself in any moment. And I think this process helps people that may have been suffering from addiction and identifying themselves as a certain way, that now they can start seeing that, wait a minute, I can choose to identify myself in a different way. And this map helps me see the identity that I'm creating. But then now we can now expand that map to start really determining on what action steps we need to start taking to realize those dreams and achieve those goals and live into that intention of who you're embodying or who you would like to assume yourself to be. And that's where I think it could be very powerful for somebody who's trying to make a shift in their life is to, I'm declaring myself and this is who I am. And now I have a tool that I can look at every day that can remind me of who I'm declaring myself to be. That if I go off, I have a tool that can clarify on how to get back on track. Where before, a lot of people, I think this is who I want to be. But once they get triggered by one of those other anchors or stimulus, that now they could fall back to an old behavior that they don't want. But I'm hopeful in the mental health space and sober space that people can use this tool just to look at real fast. All right, let me put that on my map as a trigger so we can discuss it on how, when I'm triggered again, now I can visualize it. And most people are visual. That seeing thing is powerful.
It definitely is. And you touched on something a little earlier, and I'm going to bring you back to it now because you gave me the perfect opening here. So this changes. You're changing over time. The map that you drew in 2010 is not the map that you have today. The core of it, I'm sure that the four anchors are the
Mhm.
same. Just
Right.
like when I decided in my execute step of sober method was this is who I'm going to become. These are my goals 50 years out, right? So those are all defined. But how I'm getting there has been an adjustment. So could you kind of take us through how those adjustments happen and that it's okay to have some changes here and there as long as you hold your core belief?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. I mean, one thing that immediately comes to mind is, for instance, when it comes to having excellent spiritual health. Back when I first started, my thought was prayer. If I just need to improve and lean into a better quality more efficient prayer. But as times went on, I started to realize, well, maybe I should add fasting to that. Maybe I should go on some retreats to that. Maybe there's some things that I'm learning over time that I can add to that that can help me be better into that. So that's kind of like some of those evolutions that as I'm spinning in that realm of thinking about how can I achieve excellent health and I'm thinking about it, things will come into your mind and you may meet some people, you may attract some people, you may have some situations and learn some things that can help you maximize those things on your map is more the evolution of what I mean is that you may come with better strategies, or you may learn somebody or meet a great organization or a different coach, or you may learn some things. Those things I know is what I'm referencing when I say it evolves. Your approach to being better in these areas is how mine has evolved over the years.
Yeah, that's great. So, John, the sober method is built on observing patterns without judgment on yourself and making intentional behavior changes, executing those changes consistently to restore self worth and relationships.
Nice.
Do you see a way that you might be able to use mind mapping as a practical daily support tool to foundationally work on these four steps that are central to the sober method?
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because the visual component of the sober method, mind mapping, it is so powerful that when you have it in a map form on a page that a person can have on their desk, have on their refrigerator, have on their wall, have it wherever, it can be referenced all the time and it can be modified all the time. You know what I mean? So if these are my objectives for the week in regards to these components of the sober method. These are areas that I know I need to improve on. Being able to visually look at it and modify it all the time, I think will help in the implementation of the desired behavior to where, again, a person can look at it and be like, you know what, I spent some good time in this aspect of the method, but I haven't spent enough here in this aspect of the method. So now that I can see the entire method of what the impact is going to have in my life, now I can see the actual actions that I need to take, improve upon, maybe eliminate, maybe adjust just in that one snapshot, I think is a very powerful tool that I would love to help you with or work with you on, or, figure out what we can do to, I don't know what the tools you use, but if there's a way that I can help, because my ultimate goal is just to help people love and live their best lives, Max.
I'm right there with you. I'm just here to try to help get as many people sober that want to find sobriety as they can. And I see what you're doing is a real supplemental, like could really help people in the observe step, because that's a struggle for a lot of people. That's
Yeah.
hard work. It
Yeah.
requires you to truly look introspectively into who you are and what you believe in. Most people have never done that kind of labor in their life, and
Mm-mm.
they're unsure how to do it. So I see the practical capability of what I am actually could bring to those using my method.
Absolutely. I mean, just the visual tool, visual thinking, that just being able to see some things is powerful. And it could be applicable in so many different ways because all of us have thoughts. And unless we can really see what those thoughts mean and how we need to respond to a lot of those thoughts that are creating emotions, that emotions that are creating behavior, that behaviors that are creating results, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's where it starts from. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
definitely open to
Well, that's fantastic. Everybody listening, before we close, here is one simple step you can use right away based on what John shared with us. When you notice mental clutter or one of those familiar thought loops today, I want you to pause for 5 minutes and map it out on paper. Start with a central circle labeled, "Who am I becoming?" And I want you to add branches out for all your current patterns, the real costs, the one small intentional shift that aligns with the person you are becoming. See what clarity emerges when you actually see it. I want you to do this at least once today and at least 3 times over the next week. Build on a clear map for tomorrow. This is how we start turning mental overload and repeating patterns into clear, confident action that supports lasting sobriety and authentic confidence. Now, John, we have a tradition on this podcast where each guest answers a question from my last guest, then leaves one for the next. David
Okay.
Johnson left this question for you. What is the worst moment that you have had in your life, and what did you pull from it?
I would say, yeah, this it kind of the experience we just touched on comes to mind when I lost everything. And yeah, when I lost my identity. And what I pulled from it is that I do have the power, control, and birthright to turn my life around, to change, to decide who I am, to love and live my best life despite whatever happened to me. It's up, if it's to be, it's up to me. I can turn my life around. And that's what I would say. That's the biggest thing that I learned from that experience is that I can turn my life around, and clarity is powerful. Once I get clear, you can turn your life around.
That's awesome. That's great. Now it's your turn. What is the question you would like to leave for my next guest?
Yeah. Ooh, good question. What was the greatest feeling that you had helping someone else?
No one tends to go to the positive side of the universe there. I really like that one.
Yeah, that's what I would say. What is the explain that. I would love to hear about that emotional sensation you experience knowing that you caused positive change in someone else.
Well, John, you get the last minute. Any words of wisdom or hope for the listeners who feel stuck in repeating mental patterns or carrying the weight of long-term challenges?
Clarity is power. Clarity is power. Most mental stress and anguish and drama comes from people not having enough clarity. Seek clarity. Seek clarity in anything that you're dealing with, any challenge you're having. Mind map is the most powerful tool in the universe, I believe, to help people get clarity in their visual thinking. I would also suggest that, again, don't forget the brain dumping exercise. Just get things out of your mind. For those that want to stay in touch or have any questions for me, you can always reach out to me at johndiggs.com. I do have a I am assessment. It's a free like 12 question deal that I think is very, very powerful for people to just really think about these questions. If you email me at john@johndiggs.com, I'll send you the link to the I am assessment. It's just a free deal that really asks you some specific questions around your health, your wealth, your success, and happiness. Yeah, man, I'm always here to help people. I'm very passionate about this. This is a passion project for me. This is my divine calling. I think my story, my message, and this mappineering tool and mind mapping journey that I'm on is divine guidance that I'm embracing. I would love to help you, talk to you, be there for you in any capacity that can help you love and live your best life. So thank you.
Thank you, John. And for everyone listening, I'll make sure to put a link to that I am assessment in the show
Yeah.
notes. To everyone listening, keep observing and journaling your own behaviors daily. A free guide is available at sobermethod.com. I'm Massimo Rigotti. This is the Sober Method Podcast. Please follow, like, subscribe, leave a review, and I ask that you share this episode with anyone who needs to hear it. Remember, everyone, your future is sober.